So should we wait till we come on?
There you go.
There you go.
All right.
Hello, I'm Steve Pajemski, Georgetown Conservation Commission. We're here today to discuss the public forum of the open space plan. The Conservation Commission contracted with Brown and Walker to conduct the next version of the open space plan. So hand it off to Brown and Walker to kind of lead this forum. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. My name is Brian Groth, and this is Sue Brown. We're with Brown Walker Planners, and as Steve mentioned, we've been contracted to assist in getting the open space and recreation plan up to speed and get it approved, so that Georgetown can qualify for certain amounts of funding and have a good plan in place for open spaces. So I'm just going to do a really quick presentation just to give you a snapshot of what's going on, and then we're just going to break out into a discussion in 3 different parts. So I'll just begin. So why are we doing the open space and recreation plan? You need to update it every 7 years. The last approved plan was not 2006. It does qualify you to be eligible for different grant programs, and as planners, we generally think the planning is a good idea, but it does give you a grasp on sort of long-term goals and sort of assessing where you're at, where things are moving. Just to give you a quick snapshot of population and land use trends, as you're probably not surprised, the population has grown in the past 100 years, and it's been growing at a pretty steady rate in the past 30 years. There was a significant boom in the 50s and 70s, and that coincides with sort of the land use changes, where historically Georgetown had been used for agricultural uses, a lot of farms to support other communities, and then there was a shift as we moved away from a more agricultural-based economy. A lot of that agricultural land reverted back to forest land, and then in the past century, past 50 years, basically what you've seen is a decline in all sorts of natural land, whether it's agricultural, forest, or open space, and an increase in urban, which is really qualifies as anything that's been built upon or paved over. So that just indicates the rise in residential land use to support that population growth. Look. We've done an hi, how are you? We've done an initial inventory of the open space recreation lands in town, and I just want to give you an idea of a couple of quick ones. The Conservation Commission is in charge of about 60 properties totaling over 1,000 acres. This list here you see are just the largest pieces, most notably the Lufkin Conservation Area. It includes other, it's not just recreational or conservation land, it's also water resource protection. So you see the well fields there. That's a significant piece of land. And I apologize if the text is a bit small. You see Half Moon Meadow, Camp Dennison. Town Parks and Rec manages several parks as well. And just, the acreage doesn't necessarily signify if it's more significant than the other parcel. I mean, American Legion Park, I understand, is used for quite a few activities.
Yeah, I think it's 3.62. There's 2 parcels on that.
Okay, I'll follow up on that. Thank you.
It's fine. Douglas Hill is not, we don't manage the 72.59 acres of that. That's conservation. I think we manage an acre.
So
Okay.
Little Hill is both recreation, which is about an acre,
Yeah, it's 1 acre.
And the rest
and the rest is Concom?
conservation.
We got a
Thanks.
couple acres on Central Street.
Give it a
right?
quick pen.
Yes,
Nice.
yeah, I'm going down the list, you're right.
Mhm.
East Main Street is 9.6, might be right, it might be a little bit low, I'm not sure, that's,
Is this
I
assessor's
get that
data?
here.
Yeah.
This is assessor's data, so, but
Okay.
if it's wrong,
no,
let us
no,
know.
it could be right, okay.
Well, we'll check into it
Yeah, yeah.
because
That's actually, I think it's 4 different tax assessor parcels, so you may have only gotten
Okay.
3.
So we've just submitted a draft of these inventories, so
yeah.
and we do want this feedback, absolutely, so it's just this,
And we also have a parcel on Central Street that's,
Got 2.
about 2 acres.
Does that have a name, or is it just called Central Street?
Right now it's called Central Street.
It was parceled off the Little's Hill.
Oh, okay, so it's part of a little.
Was that?
It was part of the Little's
it
Hill
was-
OSRD.
It was part of Getchell's land.
Yeah.
Oh, no, sorry, you're right, I'm sorry, you're right, I'm wrong.
Okay.
Getchell wanted it. That's why, I have that association. After we got it, he goes, I wish you knew it was for sale.
so going back to the plan, our updates are focusing on things that really change over shorter periods of time, from demographics.
I'm sorry, and then last thing too is, before we could change the subject, Martell Way, we didn't land off of Martell.
Oh, thanks.
Sorry.
No problem.
No. We'll have a chance to go back to these.
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Good. Find out what they all do.
Second item is the inventory of open spaces, so what we're just talking about now. And again, we've just submitted our first cut at that inventory, so we expect revisions and some back and forth. And then as one of this is part of developing is the community vision and goals, and that will be supplemented with an online survey. We've done a targeted survey, and we'll also be conducting interviews with people that are specified to, they have specific knowledge into open spaces and recreation lands. We'll be looking at the analysis of needs as a result of looking at the key areas of change, as a result of looking at the current inventory, and as a result of getting community feedback and stakeholder feedback. We'll then synthesize that into sort of analysis where we say setting goals for the future. And then to implement that, the next part of that will be an action plan. What type?
I'm sorry, Brian, the action plan is what the state approves, right?
They approve the whole thing. The action plan is really the recommendations for each area that you have. So it's really it's what you're going to be using on a regular basis. The rest is kind of the backup of how we got to these recommendations.
Okay.
They approve the whole plan, but the action plan is really the crux, is the working document, what you look to see what can we do, what can we put in place to achieve these goals. So,
And so the action plan, as I said, is good for 5 to 10 years.
7
But
years.
the state
Right.
review is for 7. Right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that is correct. You look for about 5, 10, 25 years if some things are long-term, but then it needs to be updated every 7 years for you to be eligible for some state grants.
Okay.
So I know some of you are familiar with the open space plan, but we're considering all types of open spaces. It's not just conservation area or ball field. It's small parks, it's farmland, it's historic sites, it's vacant properties that might be suitable for open space and recreation needs, scenic areas, and again, water protection is important. Other things that we can speak to in the plan are different initiatives. ADA and accommodations for accessibility into recreational and lands is important. Talking about farmland as a local food source, recreational programming. So it's not just about the physical pieces of land; it's also about programs and taking and actions such as the ones you see on the list here. So today, we always have to sort of switch this on the fly depending on the number of people we get here. And what we'll do today is a lot of times we'll break out into small groups. So I think what would suit us here is sort of sitting as we are in a round table. But this is sort of the format we would like to follow today. First, talk about areas used for active recreation, and that's where we're talking about ball fields, basketball courts, things like that. Then the second part will focus on low-impact recreation, so hiking, trails, and conservation lands. And then the third part will focus on recreational programs and activities. So that can be Georgetown Athletic Association, it can be if you have any trail groups, things like that. The next steps, we'll be doing a community survey online. Usually that, if we can get the word out well enough for that, we usually get a pretty good response. We'll be doing some interviews where we'll just be in face-to-face or phone calls. I have a feeling some of you might be involved in that. And then we'll be submitting to the state and getting Georgetown's open space and recreation plan approved. So we can meet those goals we presented at the beginning as being qualified for the grant funding and being prepared.
And just to add to that, Brian, as I understand the grant funding, the funds can come and apply to everything from land purchases to the conservation of the land, all the way up to actual activities that occur on the land.
Not activities.
Not activities.
Yeah, it can't be used for management or regular maintenance, for example, paving or fixing, things, mowing the lawn. It can't be used for that. But capital improvements, surely, acquisitions, surely, planning, surely. So those type of things.
I don't know where this is gonna go, but I'm gonna start with this. Two other active recreation areas that we don't have access to is the Raleigh Landing and the Clam Flats in Raleigh. And that's been under dispute, but it was deeded to the town, and we had a lawyer look at it a couple of years ago. Her opinion is those were properties that were still properties of Georgetown.
Clam Flats and what was it?
Clam Flats, Raleigh Landing and the Clam Flats. We don't put those in the recreational plan. It would give us one less chance of getting those rights back.
Oh, all right.
But,
So we'll talk about those when we talk about, those are both, you would consider
the two towns-
conservation or
well,
low
yeah, they're probably
impact?
considered, Raleigh Clam Flats, Thatcher's Bank, and the Raleigh Landing was given to both towns when the towns separated.
Oh,
And then they were given, both towns had those until 1972, when Raleigh made their first selectmen's meeting to kick Georgetown off. And then 1989, they made their second attempt, which worked to kick us off. But because those were given to us in the separation of the two towns, they didn't have the legal right to do that. That's what the lawyer's stipulation was. So they were to be shared, used, shared, and enjoyed in common. So it's something that I've been pressuring as a recreation, is not to lose those rights.
right,
Yeah.
to get it in your documentation, et cetera, so.
Yeah,
that's
and I can
good.
actually
Okay.
have-
Well, and if I can add, that's an
Yeah.
interesting idea to present when it comes to the grant funding. If you get use of those properties back, can the grants be used for Georgetown interests outside of the borders of Georgetown?
Right. They were, right. The question
Well,
is, do
but
we
they're
have?
shared interests, yeah?
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
just shared interest, but it says be owned by the town of Raleigh, but there's a shared interest, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good, valid point.
Yep.
And hopefully it can be used, so.
Yeah, so it'll be a caveat to put their way. Hey, look, if you let us back, we have more money in the till
Oh,
potentially
we
too.
should definitely look at,
Yeah.
get information on that and make sure it's documented in the plan.
Sure.
It's good to look for you for that.
Uh-oh.
Maybe give him the cannon back.
What's that?
Maybe give him the cannon back.
Well, we could maybe put a historical, both cannons go there as a historical and make an improvement to that
So be-
area on
before we
historical
Whoops,
documents.
I'm sorry. Before we start with the conversations, was that your last
Yeah,
slide?
yeah.
So before we start with the conversations, maybe we could just go quickly around with introductions, so
Sure.
we could know who
Yeah.
we're talking
Yeah,
to
that'd be
and
helpful.
vice versa.
Brian Groth, Brown Walker Planners.
Sue Brown with Brown Walker Planners. I'm a landscape architect and regional planner, and done quite a few open space plans in the near past.
Alan Olson, I'm just an interested citizen. I have some ownership in land.
George Kaminsky, citizen, I'm also with the Park and River Clean Water Association.
Okay, good. Thanks, George.
I'm Dick Talbot. I'm a Georgetown resident and have been serving on the Open Space Committee for the past probably 5 years or so, and I'm currently the chairman.
Great.
Jim Demento, Chairman of the Park and Rec. I actually showed Al this meeting. One of the reasons is
good.
we've kind of had a long-term goal to try to establish, more trails for horseback riding and other things. So, with this being a long-term potential lookout, I thought it'd be a good opportunity to.
Yeah,
We have a number of horse farms in the area that's sort of a landlocked, so.
Oh, great.
definitely. Great.
Steve Pajemski, Conservation Agent.
Harry Locatilia. I'm on the planning board, and I'm also a member of the Open Space Committee.
Howard Snyder, the town planner.
And the press in the back of the room.
I'm just here.
He's just pressing. He's just pressing. Good.
I got my collar down. I don't want that in the paper. After my glasses and Harry's question on my cleanliness of my glasses, I better.
I brought my own, too.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to take notes while Brian, and see if I can capture all the information in the room. This will be a
Yeah, try to squeeze over here.
informal, and feel free to share what information you have with us. It won't be our only chance to get it, but it'll be a good start. So I'm just gonna scooch up here so everyone can see and make sure I capture it, and if I have a misspelling or misinterpretation of what you're saying, just jump in and let me know.
And we'd like to follow just a pretty casual format for the discussion, just so we make sure we hit on all the points and don't spend all our time on one thing. So as I said, the first thing we're going to do is talk about active recreation areas. And to address that, what we'd like to do is first, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but just sort of briefly go over the assets that Georgetown currently has for active
Would it be
recreation.
helpful if I got a town map
Yes.
for us to be able to point to?
That'd be terrific.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Perhaps the old open space and recreation plan map. Maybe, do you have
I
that?
have a copy. I do, Steve.
Okay.
Not a big
Oh,
one.
did I put that right in? I think we can start though.
Yeah, well, feel free to start
So the
shooting out some
question,
ideas.
yeah, so the question is, what are the active open space areas in town that are, the most significant ones that are used a great deal or that have a lot of activity?
Soccer fields,
Yeah, so they have a name?
West Street Field.
West Street Fields, although they're under the direction of they're really not a long-term solution because they're really the future well fields for the town. So they're under the ownership of the water department. Here's a map I have. This is the Georgetown planning.
Is on the map.
Is that the one you're looking for?
So they're temporarily used for youth soccer?
We were supposed to be off, well, when they were built, we were theoretically supposed to be off until, in the 1990s.
Oh,
But,
You know how that goes.
they've been, that was the verbal kind of, we'd hope you guys, when they looked out about the town, when they looked out of the town 1980s, when they were put in, it's like, oh, you can use these until you get more fields.
right. And other fields, or not enough other fields have been identified, field space, is that?
Right.
Are there other fields that do,
Well, with the East Main Street parcel is a little bit, the one parcel that what we did is we notified all the butters with 20 acres that we were interested in buying land for fields. A lot of those have gone by the wayside by development. The Herrick parcel, which is off of Martell Way, is the one parcel that's left that's,
It's not a, she's writing it as a,
Yeah.
it's not one of our, I mean, it's only, remember the Park and Rec is identified. If you have a field, you gotta make it, it's gotta be flat, it's gotta be level, it's gotta be out of,
Yeah, that's a good question.
no wetlands. So there's only certain
Yeah.
parcels left. Go ahead.
Is your desire, Sue, at this point to break out with active rec areas that are existing and ones that are maybe in the pipeline or proposed?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You sure?
yeah, so what we're doing is looking for what we have, and then we're gonna
Existing,
identify what's good about them, and then, or what may be missing.
Okay, American Legion is 3.6 acres.
And it has basketball, it has tennis.
Has, yeah, do you wanna put what's activities
Sure.
in there? Swimming, tennis, baseball, basketball, playground,
As a bandstand.
Concert,
bandstand.
yeah.
I think that's it.
Does it have
Volleyball,
boat access?
Volleyball, no.
Can people put kayaks in, small craft?
Oh,
It's got volleyball net.
yeah, what's that?
It's got a volleyball net.
Yeah, it's a volleyball.
Yeah.
Small craft access.
Yeah,
Yeah, small craft access, but not a landing, not a launch.
okay,
Right, not a trailer launch, but a small craft where people can just put in with
Okay.
a canoe or kayak or
Right.
something.
Carry in.
Carrying.
Carrying.
What body of water is that on?
Pawtucket.
Do you see the larger one there?
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah,
Right
yeah,
where
it's-
you're just pointing,
yes.
that's American
That's
Legion Park.
American Legion Park.
It also has
Great.
bathroom facility,
Oh.
and a kitchenette.
Do we want to go back to West Street to kind of point out some of the
Sure, yeah,
issues
yeah,
with
sure,
it?
yeah.
Because
Yeah. West Street is also, like you said, the turtle area.
That's
So,
not, this is
yeah,
an
let's-
active rec.
So that's soccer, predominantly soccer and lacrosse.
Lacrosse.
yeah.
Um,
You have
So
lacrosse
What are there,
teams.
4 full-size fields, sir?
3, they're actually using 2, but there's availability for 3.
Ah,
2 in existence, the way they, it's another story, but you could,
Yeah.
So a lot of the issues with that area is it's one of the larger breeding areas for Blanding's turtles. So there's this kind
right.
of
So its future is bleak.
Right.
It's also a next, I guess you agree it's the next potential area for wells? Or a potential area for wells?
No, I would say it's, the treatment plant might be encroaching. They're talking about maybe possible
Okay.
water treatment plant that might
All right,
encroach.
so it's got water facilities encroachment or what?
Right.
But it is water department property.
they've never really been able to maintain them as well as they'd like because it's on
Restrictions
it's
of-
in the zone 2 and zone 1. So
Oh, okay.
they can't really fertilize as much as they'd
Sure.
like. They can't water.
Right.
They can't
So they can
really
water.
take the fields are overused and
Yeah.
not maintained very well.
What
so
about
it's hard.
school fields?
School
You-
fields are a part of this, definitely. So what do you have for school fields?
But before we do that, let's hit the other, one more, Little's Hill.
Okay.
Little's Hill is a one U12 soccer field. Yeah, that way we can do.
Yeah, that makes
Um,
sense.
And then we have that's existing.
Yep.
And then the Park and Rec has a new field that we're in the permitting phase. It's called East Main Street, but that won't be done till another 2 years.
Separate from Little's Hill?
Yes, it's called East Main Street Recreational Area.
are we now into potential?
That one should be
Non-existing,
labeled.
but
Yeah, it should be
potential.
there. I don't know how you want to
Future?
divide them up.
Do you wanna break that out into future?
We can,
or-
I'll make a
No,
note of
yeah.
it, so, yeah.
Okay.
And this doesn't have to be a comprehensive list, we're just kind of trying to get a feel of what
Yeah.
your major,
Yeah, so we'll just say there's 9.6 acres of potential recreational.
And that one's kind of in development.
Right. And then
already.
we have another parcel that's a longer term, which is Martel Way. And that's, I can't remember, what was that, 10 acres? Can't remember, 10
Yeah,
acres?
maybe a little more.
12 acres of
There's 2
potential.
lots.
But that's farther out, I would say
Okay.
that's 5 to 6 years.
Are these areas that would alleviate the problem with the well fields? Should you have to move out?
Well, no, no, but ideally, well, it's hard to tell yet, because, East Main Street is only gonna be a soccer field, one baseball field, one
Skate park.
skateboard park, and a dog park. Those aren't, so there's no soccer being, Martel Way is, there's not enough land there to put the 3 soccer fields. There's probably only enough land there to put 1 as existing,
Keeping in mind that
unless we get other surrounding parcels.
East Main Street and Martel Way are intended to
Right.
be connected to
It's part of-
create the Greenway.
okay.
Right, that's part of the Greenway long-term thought. So
Thank
it's
you.
both ends of the
Yes.
Greenway.
You have the bookends.
Now we can
Need a
go to
few
the school
volumes.
stuff.
Yeah.
Good, okay.
Now we got school fields, high
Right.
school has,
You can start with the Pembroke, work your way up. Start with the Pembroke.
wanna start with the Pembroke? Right, Pembroke is, Pembroke is now being redesigned.
Mhm.
So we're gonna go with the new design of Pembroke?
Yeah,
Who knows the most about that, you for fields?
yeah, they're in the pipeline, so
You know what I'm saying, but I don't know exactly what fields
Well,
are gonna
it's-
be
I
there.
think he's
Well,
asking,
That
asking
school
you
is
as,
to be
on the school
demolished
on
and a new one
the
built.
school
Right.
building.
I think there's gonna be a,
George, what the
uh,
number of fields
Oh,
will
the
be
new
and what their
design is-
configuration.
new design's gonna be, I think it's gonna be a full-size soccer field.
One
And-
adult soccer
and-
field.
and a,
Baseball.
I don't know the term for it, a baseball field.
Two, I think they're gonna be called two, pony fields, which are like U12 fields.
I only saw one diamond,
I think there's one in the front, one in the back.
but that's the existing one.
So there's one
there's-
existing, and then they're proposing, I thought, one full-size with a diamond,
Right,
kind of superimposed.
right.
So
Are
they
those,
have one existing.
Are those online?
Yeah, the school got approved to be built, it's
Okay.
being, so it's a definite, timeline isn't exact.
Steve, you should have the actual plans, because they're under,
Yeah,
they're
they're
getting
going
off
before
of-
us right now.
yes, they're in hearing
Okay.
at this point.
So we'll get that figured out.
So that's probably like
Okay.
2015, 2016.
Great.
So now
Other
Pearl,
schools?
we got Pearlie, go to Pearlie next.
Why not?
Pearlie is a baseball field, high school baseball field. The outfield is also used for girls, field hockey, and maybe soccer, I'm not, so it's basically, the
Okay.
outfield is used for
Multiple person.
multiple reasons, multiple practices.
They also have a play area, don't
Yeah.
The,
they?
that's
They have-
it.
They have a play area there too,
Okay.
attached to
A
the
playground,
school as
there's a
well.
Oh, playground.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All age levels,
Um,
or are they a U6 to U12 or something? High school doesn't practice
Want
there.
the strengths?
Yeah,
The
those,
high- I think the high school does, I think the girls' field hockey does.
okay.
I'm not sure,
If you think those, we do want to just keep on moving along here. If you think that highlights sort of the major
We have
active
one more
recreation
school.
pieces,
Oh,
one more?
sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
you still have the other.
What's the other school?
Middle high school.
Middle high school.
Middle/high. Now, that's a question of the upper fields and the lower fields.
Right.
The lower field is currently, full-size football field
Full-size football
with
field.
an overlaid baseball field.
JV baseball.
JV baseball field. And that is
And practice
receiving
fields.
AstroTurf,
Ah, yeah.
within the near future. My understanding is there are two fields, for the soccer fields?
Two upper
Are
fields.
they lacrosse-sized fields, aren't they?
There are two softball fields, and the outfields are used for lacrosse and soccer. Practices, I'm not sure about games.
Practice, yeah.
That's it. I haven't been in the GA stuff for a while.
Right.
Bearing in mind, wasn't there a study done by the GAA, which, I hope.
Forward
you'll
that
be-
to.
We have that. We
Oh,
yeah, we
great.
did review that.
Phenomenal,
Okay.
phenomenal. That'll help you with your usage.
Yes.
Your usage needs
Yeah.
to determine how many fields
Oh,
you
that's
folks
it.
think
Recommended.
we're going to need.
Is that it, everybody?
Uh,
So rec areas are only sports areas, or what about open land? Is that a rec area? I'm just
This
trying, what are
is
you trying to
active.
define?
Yeah, these are like active,
Active.
organized sports.
The next section is passive.
I just get lost at my age.
That's okay.
Huh?
Mine
But
too.
before we moved on to those, we kind of wanted to know.
Yeah, we want to, before we move on to the passive rec, we want to, of the areas we've just listed, we want to talk about strengths and need improvements. So I'd like to first focus on strengths.
We don't have enough acreage. If we get off West Street, we're gonna be in problems for just enough land. We need more, we need more acreage for soccer fields. We don't have a track. We don't have the land for a track. In other words, a track would have to be a flat piece of land, so wide, so long. If the future of the town is to eventually have a track, which some people want, it's not possible right now
Okay.
with our existing properties. And when you identify land of, 8, 9 acres plus that is flat, you're limited, very limited. Especially with the access to, neighborhoods and, all the traffic issues that are associated with that.
And what are the? Do you have any of these that you feel really comfortable with that they provide a strong use in a park in the town?
The first
Well,
three
yeah, let
definitely
me
do.
get you,
American Legion?
The first three do.
Yeah, the Westfields,
Mhm.
although even though it's considered somewhat temporary, this one's a strong. So what is it about the American Legion that makes it a strong park?
It's a community center in the sense people enjoy it. It's where people go for parties and functions.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask about that. So because that has a bathroom facility and kitchen,
Yeah.
so they have you have functions there as well.
Yeah.
It's
And,
pretty centrally located to the downtown, to the,
Yeah.
you know, walking distance to a lot of things.
You should take a ride by there when you're leaving, so you understand it.
Yeah.
Won't take you that long.
So a lot of like if you have community celebrations, does that tend to be where that
Yes.
they're held or they start or okay?
And it's towards the center of town, so it's easily accessible by a lot of people by foot.
Okay.
Yeah.
It has enough.
It
you
has
feel like it
something
has the
for a
right
lot
of-
of different ages,
Okay,
certainly.
multi-age. And do you feel like it has enough infrastructure?
It can't take much more. I mean, we got an addition we're trying to put off the as a garage storage area, small area, but yeah, they can't take much more.
Okay, so it's pretty
pretty-
much built out.
Pretty much built out.
I would say it's on the water too, that's.
Yeah.
Oh.
right.
Yeah, it's on the
Right.
water, so.
And we're putting about $100 and some odd
Yeah.
$80,000
New
towards it.
playground.
New playground and
Recreation
new picnic facilities,
Yeah, the-
pavilion and.
The
The
three things
pavilion.
we identified was a playground, a pavilion so people could get under and make an addition on the building, and two of those three are being done. And that was our 15-year lookout, so.
Oh, good. So you got the new playground,
So 2 of the 3.
pavilion, and the final
Two
one
or three that
was,
the park identified as what we'd like to do in 15 years.
what was the third one besides the playground and the pavilion?
Expanding the building.
Oh, expanding the building.
Yeah, we need we got stuff that we leave out in the open.
Yeah.
Got it.
You need a maintenance shed or a maintenance
Shed or,
facility.
yeah, small one. That's-
Yeah,
Yeah.
garage.
We've identified that. And I just met with the foundation guy and seeing if we could pull that off. And it's also accessible to the rails trail.
Oh,
It abuts the rails trail as a place where people can get off to go to the bathroom.
Is that its own category?
That's great.
Access to, I mean, the
That
strength
is,
of it.
but that's,
Is it?
but
Well, yeah, but
yeah,
if
we'll get to that, but that's good to know that they're
The
connected.
rail
The
trail
rail
should be
trail is
considered
a
an active
future
recreation.
facility.
right.
So that's a strength that's geographically located to
Right.
it,
Right.
close to it.
So shouldn't the rail trail be considered active recreation area?
I think we're talking about future now.
Yeah.
Are we into the
Or
potential,
existing.
or are we in existing?
That's, well, we got the license for it, so
Yeah, we can certainly talk about the rail trail.
the license has been signed, right?
How about any of these other ones offer a real strength?
Well, the school,
I know they're all
I mean, with the new artificial turf surfaces at the high school, middle and high school field, that certainly would be a strength.
Absolutely.
That's a future.
Yeah, the idea that you could theoretically have summer programs potentially for using the portion of the school and knowing that you'll always have a.
Right.
It relieves some of the demands,
Yeah.
that are inherent to.
I also, if you want to look at strength, I think the two parcels, the Martell and like Harry was saying, East Main Street, we've locked the ends of what we consider the potential greenway, so theoretically that can be an open space for a number of different activities
Right.
that people can use, whether they want a mountain bike or whatever it is the town determines is the ultimate use of that area, but.
Bearing in mind, it would blur the line between active and passive rec,
Yeah.
because the trail that would go through there, on one side would be active recreational, and the other would be passive recreational.
Yeah.
And it would also incorporate and encompass a spur off of the proposed rail trail, because that's all.
Right.
So is there
It's fine.
a programming plan in place for these
Well-
parcels, or is it still in
Well,
development stage?
We've purchased a number of land, we've purchased land, the conservation's purchased land.
Yeah.
The thought process between active and passive was to buy land and then try to make it a mixed use.
Yeah.
Some parcels conservation, some parcels part active, some parcels part passive. So it isn't,
It's an informal.
right, it's an informal.
It's not a documented plan or a documented guide to it.
Yeah.
It's been documented in terms of a
Right.
graphic one sheet plan.
That's something that still has yet to be done. It's,
The ultimate goal is you got all
To
these,
formalize it.
you got all these
Yeah.
fingers going into these parcels that will just basically turn into a major metropolis of multi. So the idea is if we could grab some of those to make that a much lighter density area,
Mhm.
it would be beneficial.
Hopefully, you'll be able to help us formalize that vision, if you will, and we can certainly move towards the
Is it-
steps in the action plan that would help us achieve it.
It's the geographic center of the town too. If you put a dot in the center of the town, that green belt is the geographic center.
Also connects or close to school properties, is
Yes,
it?
yeah, well, yeah, it has the potential.
Potential to connect, I think I remember.
No, yeah, a lot of people can come down from different neighborhoods and get through those parcels to the school, if you wanted to, if they wanted to walk to school. There is a major problem, though, the upper fields at the high school, I don't think have a right of way to, down to those, any of those streets, do they?
I don't think.
I don't think
I don't
so.
think
They
it
used to-
actually
The old days, everybody used to walk through people's yards, but I don't think
Right.
there's a deeded
Ah.
50-foot strip to go. So if someone was to walk through the neighborhoods and get
Right.
to those streets,
Access from High Street,
and, yeah, and Pillsbury Lane, or what's the one off of Pillsbury, the one that's new development,
Raynard?
Renard, right?
access from High Street might be something you might want to consider for the upper fields, the high school.
Right. There is an access there, but I'm thinking more people coming in from, Lisa Lane and stuff like that, walking through, they would have to go all the way around to get to High Street. If they got off of Renard, they could,
There is
Avenue.
access from
Pembroke or.
Renyard through conservation land. There is access, from Rosemarie through conservation land that's already been purchased. There are
So there's a number of places
Wall
that
Street.
connect them, but some that
the Wall Street,
could be strengthened. with-
there's a Wells Street,
Wells Ave.
Wells Ave, excuse, Wells
Got a
Ave
boat or-
Recreation.
Yeah, or boat.
Recreational facility that abuts the rail
Or-
trail.
or
No,
truck,
no, we're into passive now, that's why we're not.
All right, so we'll get to those.
Yeah.
Now.
Needs?
yeah. Improvements needed. We
Yeah.
touched upon it a little bit, but want to go back to that.
Right, so you said there's not enough soccer fields.
Needs
and
for active.
track.
Yes,
so-
needs for active.
And it doesn't have to be the physical needs, you can also talk about the management needs or oversight needs. Can throw
Planning
those in
needs.
if there's the
My wish was to
funding
be
needs.
enough land for a track and 3 soccer fields to get off of West Street. Those would be my needs. I think that's the town's needs because,
Isn't there a need in town to establish a maintenance department for park and rec land separately
Well,
from?
the DPW has always been, the DPW has always been up there, which seems to be a very valid point, is we have the town highway department kind of working unofficially as they handle all the park and rec stuff that we can't. And
You've got the highway department doing maintenance, you've got
Yeah.
the GAA doing some of their own
Maintenance.
maintenance, you've got volunteers doing maintenance.
We hire people for maintenance,
Ah, okay,
so, I mean, it's just,
Yeah, it's a hodgepodge.
the GA's doing maintenance at the school, the highway department does the maintenance, and it's just a mixed match of, I don't know how to explain it, actually.
well, let me assure you that you are not alone as a community in doing that. Many communities struggle with trying to find the maintenance dollars and manpower to do that, but it's good to think about
All those
where
efforts should be consolidated.
where
in
your
some way.
maintenance comes from
It's
and
more
how it
efficient.
can be improved. So you hire independent ones, you do it through the DPW, you do it
The
through
GA is a
other.
major contributor for maintenance.
Oh,
and
Georgetown Athletic
Athletic
Association.
Is it all coordinated, or does
Yeah, it's coordinated because.
is it like the highway department comes out and does something, and then GAA shows up and say,
It's all
"Oh, we were
coordinated
going to do
because
that"?
everybody knows everybody,
Right.
yeah.
and they email each other constantly, but
Yeah.
Is it
town
through?
gets bigger, we
Yeah.
lose that.
And do you know if there's actual agreements, like structured agreements, or kind of handshake?
Handshakes,
Handshakes.
Yeah. Okay. So informal.
ad hoc roundtable.
Yeah. So does that lead to I mean, it may be cumbersome, or some things may not be getting done. Do you feel like it's not? Is it working well to have all these, or could it work
works.
better?
But for instance, we had trees cut down, the guy couldn't take the brush, so I called Peter. He chipped the brush, it took him a week and a half to get up there. We have
Yeah.
a party there tomorrow, and he came yesterday finally to chip it. But
Yeah.
it gets
Not
done,
ideal.
but there's loops, it's a hogwash of
Sure.
phone calls and
It's inefficient,
It's
but it
inefficient.
does get work done.
he may charge us, he may not. I don't know how he's
May
gonna do
seem
that. So
inefficient.
like you said, it's not efficient,
Okay.
But it does get done.
Good.
but it does get done.
Number one problem
Yeah.
that we probably will end up identifying isn't a maintenance problem. It isn't, it is a lack of necessary fields to be able to field all the GAA and town sports teams.
Yeah.
And it's a great point, now with the new synthetic turf and the new rails trail going through, DPW needs to be looked at even more, because you're gonna have so many miles of rails trail that may have maintenance issues, or, things that are going on there, they may have to pick up
I need
trash.
specialized equipment. to
And if
maintain.
East Main Street's now
Low-
coming
low
online.
profile equipment.
There's a number, so it's becoming more, there's more and more things in the town now in the
More funding
next-
needs.
Next 10 years to manage, so.
Right.
There's the system in place now is going to get more pressure, and it's
gonna have a lot
probably
more
not ready to
pressure.
handle it.
Right. It won't function, this system won't function 5 years out.
Okay.
No, I don't even know where they go, but mowers leave my house all the time. Parents, and they go to play, do fields. I mean, it's like, where's the mower going? Sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
Your mower. They hire you?
no. The kids, the grandkids and
Oh.
stuff, they're
Yeah.
doing something.
Oh.
Some
Oh, yeah.
fields, the field's this high, we gotta go mow it.
Oh, wow. So it truly is a
Even
collaboration.
community spirit.
It truly is a
Community
collaboration
spirit,
there. That's a good
community
way to.
endeavor.
So
Yeah.
organized athletic events or athletic teams and whatever get a lot of the emphasis here, as they should.
Mhm.
But adult recreation and whatever too
Is lacking, right.
is lacking.
Good. We'll cover that too.
And the other thing is, organized children's events isn't run by the town, it's run by the private organization GAA.
Right.
So the town is letting a private organization run soccer. All the youth programs are run by them, pretty much.
Right.
It's
And
a
we'll.
volunteer effort.
Good.
Right.
So if 3 guys die and that group disbands or something, we're in trouble. I mean, in the sense that it's being run by three presidents who are townies, and they grab their friends who are in the neighborhood and.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, and we'll circle back to this because the last thing we're going to talk about is programming.
Yeah.
So, anything else we should talk about on the active
Active rec.
recreation front? You mentioned a skateboard park. That's
Incorporated
being-
into the East Main Street, and that's future.
And that's future. It's funded or designed. It's
It is
being
funded.
designed.
It's
being designed now.
in permitting.
But once it's approved, I think what's going to be built first is the baseball field.
No, that'll be part of the phase, that'll be the.
First phase?
First phase,
Oh, right.
will be the parking lot, the skateboard park, the road going out to the dog park, but then the baseball field will not be, there'll be land there, there'll have to be
It's a second phase.
second phase.
And will the skateboard park be managed and maintained by the Parks Department?
Yes, and Peter. Officially, it'll be officially.
And the
maintained. GAA.
Right.
And anybody
down
who
the
goes to
street.
borrow his lawnmower.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and there's kind of a blurring between, active recreation and passive.
Sure,
where,
sure.
Like canoeing and kayaking and sailing, I mean,
Yeah.
we have
That's a good point.
opportunities for those kinds of things in town that just don't exist.
The East Main Street has water too, which down the road, like he says, that opens up potential for
fishing.
water, for fishing, for
Right.
ice skating, for canoeing, for just walking trails that aren't part of this phase.
Right.
So it has passive recreational portions that haven't been fully developed yet.
I like it, Sue. Red is future. I like that.
I just don't want to run out. I don't want to disappear in
I
front
thought
of
you
my
were
eyes.
color coding, I'm sorry.
Dick, I think you brought up a good point. We've been talking at a certain age group for a lot of the active
Yes.
recreation facilities.
Right.
Could you talk, if you're able to, more about what the adult recreational needs would be For
Well-
active recreation?
I think that one of the things would be better sidewalks.
Yes.
The sidewalks in the main, business district here are fine. But when you get out onto any of the more extended streets, the sidewalk up North Street is awful. It's hazardous with tree roots, and the paving is such that it doesn't drain in the winter. It's ice covered.
So it's,
even if
it's access
plowed.
for
Yeah.
adults to the
Yeah,
facilities.
access to things.
Sidewalks are a good point.
Yeah, I mean, that's active recreation.
But
Are there any adult leagues, soccer leagues, or adult tennis leagues, or adult?
I don't know about that.
Tennis is not a league, but it's a very active group of people, very fragmented. We couldn't tell you who everybody is, but
Oh, okay.
I haven't played tennis, that's why I know. But, they don't necessarily say, hey, know everybody, but there's always.
But there's
There are-
potential for that.
It-
I think
oh, it's
there's-
it's busy.
There are
Yeah.
tennis courts.
There are
There's
two
no
tennis
potential
courts.
for a
two
league.
tennis courts, not three. You need three for a league, for
Yeah.
a high school program, right?
Ah.
We have two. So that's, the other thing is there's no exercise facility, there's no Gold's Gym, there's no
The private.
private or
exercise
public.
And there's no access for adults or,
There's no track, for instance, we used to always go down to Triton to run, because it's a walk, older people wanna walk on a flat surface. So they would walk down there, but that's locked now, because it's.
there's some informal, maybe it's not informal, but adult basketball availability for the high
Yeah,
school
at
and
night,
stuff.
Tuesday nights and Sunday nights, but it isn't,
But it's not organized, I don't think.
well, it's been around for 50 years, it just.
But it's,
It's,
So they
But
open
if-
up the
if
high
people
school and
move
people
into
just
town,
can come in like an open
um,
gym?
right, it's an open basketball night on Tuesdays and Sundays.
Right.
I think Pembroke is used for walking. Don't adults walk there?
yeah, I
They-
think so.
On a positive note, one of our independent senior housing facilities abuts the future rail trail,
Oh, nice.
literally abuts.
Some of my experience with municipal parks has been that for adults, they like to have those stations that go around the park for different types of
Sure.
Right.
low impact type of,
Right.
has that ever been a
Exercise.
recognized need?
Well,
or
you know,
has
I hate
anybody
to say
ever
it,
done
but,
that?
Elaborate on
yeah,
that,
but
'cause
wouldn't
I'm
that
not
be great to
familiar
do
with
one
it.
on the rails trail? When you rails trail, you go to Camp Dennison and do a run through here and then go down the rails trail. And one thing about the rails trail, it butts a lot of facilities that, like the American Legion, Camp Dennison, a number of different Driftway Farm, what's the, Cranes
Pond.
So it's, and it goes right through the center of the business district, so theoretically, as you need to get water or stuff like that, it really works out well for this town.
It'll be the recreational and
So it
passive
provides
and
a
active
drop-off
recreational
point for
spine
certain.
Yeah.
of the community.
Yeah.
That's how it was
Did you
laid
say
out.
there was on Camp Dennis, or is there somewhere in town where there's like a circuit training type?
Mm.
No, that's what he said.
That's what I was
That's where
bringing
you're-
up,
there
is
isn't
that,
one.
my experience has been for adults, they like to have the low impact circuit
Yeah.
training, they walk station to station to
Right.
station.
Right.
I don't know of any in town, I don't know if
No,
there's
I
ever
don't
been a
think so.
need
No.
identified. If it was, and that's something that might come up, that if people
Yeah.
discuss it, they wanna have it.
Good point.
Good.
All right. Shall we move on to passive recreation then, as we're sort of segueing into that
Camp
already?
Dennison.
All right.
Yeah. So let's start identifying those spots.
All right. So,
Do we identify just town, like the Georgetown Riley State Forest is town?
yeah.
Yeah.
Both
Things in town that
Okay.
Hampton.
anything in town.
Okay. It's not managed by the town, but it's town
No.
property.
Right.
Georgetown
Single
Raleigh.
Single end,
Yeah,
Oh,
one end.
thank you.
no problem. Common.
And these are all
Also,
existing.
Boston State Forest.
Existing. We're
is
talking about
accessed and very close to Camp Dennison.
passive recreation and conservation.
And conservation, like major
So
conservation.
important conservation.
Fishing
Driftway
game
Farm.
properties, you have some big
Yeah.
acreage, fishing game.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Crane Pond, Crane Pond, Fish and
Excuse me.
Wildlife.
Thank you.
What's it called? Crane Pond?
Crane Pond, Fish and Wildlife.
What's owned by the VFW?
And there's a gun
Whale-
club
Whale Brook,
organized.
That's that's Lufkin's Brook.
Lufkin's Brook.
Lufkin's Brook is water department, resource,
That's conservation.
conservation.
There's a lot of water land back there, though. You can almost lump them together.
Is Lufkin's Brook used for trails and Does that have
Extensive.
access?
And it's a community garden too.
Oh,
All right.
Is the beach at American Legion actually ever really used as a beach? Do people go there for
Well, you can-
sunbathing and everything?
Well, you can include the three town ponds
Yeah, they
as,
do now.
there's
The last
fishing
2 or
and
3
boating.
years, Yes.
They've cleaned up the sand a lot.
Yep.
And what are those?
Water counts have all been under
Rock,
50.
Baldpate,
Because of what the conservation.
and Pentucket.
Stormwater runoff. Yeah.
Fishing, boating,
Pentucket,
Pond.
rock,
oh, Rock.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
and Baldpate,
Bald plate. Right.
although most of it,
Baldpate doesn't
Is-
actually
is
exist
it
in
box?
town though.
but we use it though.
Is there access to Baldpate from Georgetown?
Campton.
Through Camden.
Through
Yeah.
Campton.
Yes,
There's a
Land was
deed in
changed.
there too, bald,
land was swapped, we have it.
I don't
Bald.
think so. We don't
Hey.
own out to the water.
bald pate.
Thank you.
Oh, it's
Swap was done.
But we have,
Sounds like.
we have access
Land,
to it though.
swap land with Boxford.
I thought they kept a strip.
Brian, do you see where the word Boxford is?
Yeah.
The Baldpate Pond is in Boxford, a little bit just on the other side of the line.
Okay.
so.
You see how, do you see how Camp Denizen there?
That big
Juts
green,
out.
green
That
right
line.
there.
No, that's the state
Right.
forest.
Oh,
The lighter
That
green.
lighter green one
Toward
to the
you,
right of that.
yes.
See how it juts out in what would appear to be
Out of town.
lower. It would appear to jut up.
Oh, yeah.
That was a land swap that was done with
Very
We
good.
were wondering
WASA.
about that,
And
okay.
that gave us the access, if you could see.
Oh, okay.
When
Oh,
you fall
okay.
off the edge of the
Yeah,
earth,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
into the gray
Water
area,
there.
it is actual water. You splash, yeah.
Okay, good.
I mean,
You can check it out on Google Earth.
the only one that
Yeah,
really
yeah.
has good boat access is Rock Pond, at least from
Yes,
Georgetown.
that has the ramp.
Pentucket.
State ramp is on
Yeah,
that.
Pentucket.
Baldpate has a canoe launch.
Yeah.
I'm talking for like larger boat. I mean,
Trailer.
you know,
Trailer
Pentucket
state
Pond
ramp.
across
Trailer
from the
ramp.
gun club.
You said
You'd
the
really get a
state
canoe.
ramp was?
Yes.
And rock, yeah.
Yeah.
What about these? What are these smaller bodies of water?
Those are,
Center of town?
that's part of the green belt.
Yeah.
The green belt greenway, we purchased that. That's owned by that was the purchase as part of the East Main Street recreational area.
So we're talking.
Are there any recreational opportunities in those bodies of water?
Yeah,
that are
we
future?
we identified that as, potential ice skating and.
Oh, right, right.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier.
Is there any access for passive recreation on the Parker from Cranes? Is there any place to walk in there with a canoe and put it in?
We usually go off Thurlow Street. Yeah.
Yeah, there used to be, well,
There used to be there's a road way,
There
and it
used
goes
to be a
way
lot
in
of
through
power
there.
lines
It's
and-
hard to go and get
Right
in.
now.
I can't even get into a horse and carriages.
right. But you used to be able to go in there and drop off your fishing boat.
Yeah,
But you
public
can't-
access to the Parker River is a weakness.
You had talked about horse trails
Yeah.
and agricultural land, which would be considered in this kind of section two, passive open space agricultural land, other
And
large
Raleigh has horse trails.
Yeah,
parcels
but-
that are used for that into the,
But the other towns are doing much, like Mill Pond up in West, I was just down
Ah.
through there. There's probably 60, 70 people using that area for horseback riding.
Yeah.
So it's an opportunity, recreational opportunity, money going into those areas, people using them, utilizing them. We have places you can ride, but we're not bringing in any money or enjoyment from people who want to use those.
Mhm.
They use them sporadically, they're not somehow managed in a way that allows people to feel safe. I mean, they have a place you can put your horse, you can take your horse out of the,
Trailer and
trailer and you put it in a fenced-in area while you're putting a saddle on and stuff. Those facilities aren't existent.
nice. Who has those?
Oh, Mill Pond in West Newbury?
In West Newbury?
Is it Newbury or West Newbury?
West
Pond.
Newbury.
West Newbury, yeah.
So we're not really
By the pond.
bringing
The,
any.
the horse trails are ignored. They don't exist.
Right.
All right? And somebody can help me otherwise.
No, they're not
They're
trails.
ignored and they don't exist.
Yeah.
And what happens is there's plenty of places to use for them, but it takes simple management. I mean,
Right.
and it takes activating the community who really, in some ways, I think really feels they've been excluded from.
They're under-maintained.
Is there a group?
Well, I mean, just to be able to go out and typically, most places outside of here, I'll talk about outside of here, we just talked about earlier, you go to Boxford, you got a group over there, or Hamilton, one of them, you got a group over there, they don't just maintain trails, they
BTA
buy
Bolt.
land and they
BTA
do
Bolt.
everything else. And those are horse people, and when you mobilize them, I mean, they're a really big impact force for you. Georgetown has none, and matter of fact, this is an opinion. Not only that, I feel, especially with this new trails, the bike trail there, we're not only not being involved, we're being excluded. I mean, you know, you're just gonna make, you know, at work in the construction business, I hate scrap because it makes crooks out of honest people. I mean, a guy who would never take something will take scrap. And I just soon throw it in the trash sometimes. And what happens is, so if I'm gonna drive a horse or ride, I'm gonna be going places that I'm told, you can't go here. Or I'm gonna be going through places that you're not supposed to be going through here, and so that's what's happening. You're not including,
Yeah.
there's no inclusion.
Is there an advocate, group, like
Not yet.
a number that's?
No, I don't think there's ever been
growing?
one put together, but they're easy enough to activate with a particular cause. I mean, the Board of Health tried to create a big issue about the newer one time. And I mean, obviously, nobody was ever even notified of the public hearing.
Huh.
Once they got wind of it, the Board of Health has a list of all people that have these animals. It just took a matter of making those phone calls, and the room was filled up when nobody expected anybody to be there. So there is a, you know.
We have 3 major horse farms in this area, and the potential is, I mean, I hate to say it, but horse people bring in money, and it brings in values, and they buy 5-acre homesteads, and it's a potential for a resource that people, if we could make people enjoy it, it brings, you know, more value to the town.
Can we
But there's
identify those three? There's
Horse facilities?
the Alson's.
Yeah, there's Tinselwood.
There's-
Tinselwood is one, and what's
Twisden.
Red's
Main
old
Street.
place not
Oh,
called?
I don't know, I just know. But
Yeah, right, I know.
Twisden
Auburn
Wood
over
Farm.
by 95.
Yeah.
Twisdenwood.
Tinselwood is one,
Twisden
which is
Wood.
Muscovy.
Twisdenwood, I believe it is. Twisden?
So not East Main Street.
Twisdenwood.
Twisdenwood?
Down by the golf club?
Yeah.
Twisted.
Immediately.
Twisden. And the one by Red's place, we used to call it Auburn Farms, what's that called? God, I can't remember.
Not familiar with it.
East Main Street.
We
I
have-
think it's safe to say that
Main
it's,
Street.
that it's under-maintained, and that it was pretty much completely ignored in the old open space plan, and I hope it wouldn't be in this one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, happy
See,
to.
before you get going too much, I'd like to point out that this water department
Yeah.
It's right on the right,
use-
it's in
u-
back.
allows passive recreation on their land. They have 220 acres, not 20 acres, on your PowerPoint.
And those are larger, we'll call them public stables. I mean, there is a
Oh.
lot of stables all over the place. The 27 acres at Wells
Right.
Ave, that used to be a private facility. That was all about horses. Vicky owned it. You know, and there's a whole bunch of them down on Wells Ave. I mean, we maintain a lot of land, and we do agriculture, and ours is really based, well, we got sheep and stuff, but it's based around the horses, but they're private. And they're scattered all throughout town.
Yeah, so some
Okay.
private landowners welcome other horses, people with horses to trail on their properties?
Generally, they do. I mean, we've always had our land open,
Yeah.
as long as it wasn't abused, you know, to our land.
Right.
But it has to go somewheres.
Right.
Right.
Need some
See,
connectivity.
you can go to, it's one thing to drive into a dead end. It's like, okay, we turn around and go back.
Right.
Theoretically,
Perhaps
if
one
you
of-
went to the Georgetown Riley State Forest, and I'm playing like someone half on drugs. Theoretically, if you want to do it right, you can go to Georgetown Riley State Forest, go through the farm at Auburn Farms. If you had a crossing there on East Main Street, you go through the green belt all the way to Morehouse's farm. You could cross there because there's a Stone Road conservation area, and actually get over to the wildlife refuge in Cranes Pond. You go through that, cross that into the Fish and Game Club area. I mean, you could almost make a loop and end up back in the same spot if you had. It'd take a huge amount of work to get the rights of ways.
Right.
But you could have a 10-mile or 15-mile loop through around the town and back. It's possible now. It's never going to be possible. It was definitely possible 20 years ago. But it'd be a huge monumental effort. But even if you took a portion of that, said, okay, let's make a place so you go through the Georgetown Riley State Forest. You can now go to the green belt down to Morehouse's farm or something, and go through there and get out to, you know, I'm not sure a certain
Cross
legs of
133.
that.
May I make a
May not all be
suggestion?
possible, but
May I make a suggestion? And this is pretty much sort of your end, sort of the planning end. Jimmy seems to have innate knowledge of these trails. Alan, you have knowledge of it. I personally I can't picture it. And one of the things I've always found helpful when I try to picture things like that on a great scale is a map.
Oh, yeah.
A map that would show the equestrian trails as well as walking trails and be able to somehow identify those. I don't know what our
And
mapping,
they're very much dual purpose, Harry.
yes, some
You know,
of them
they
would
will-
overlay.
They dual purpose.
I
You know,
understand.
Even mountain biking, you know, I mean, you start.
Mountain
sure.
biking, cross country, and I hate to get crazy, but what happens if you decide in the winter you're gonna have a dog sled race to bring money into the town? And you had that place, that lake established.
Well, you
and
you
had
must have
an
got
annual-
that because Essex County Trails over in Hamilton Wenham does that every year. They have dog sled races as part of their fundraiser.
And I wonder how much
Interestingly enough,
money
the
they
tr-
bring
those
in to
trails
people
would
coming
be
to
very
watch
good
that and
very
enjoy
helpful
that.
to have mapped.
Does the Essex County Trails Association help with trails in Georgetown? I know they have a
No.
limited number. They have like
No.
5, I think, communities.
But,
This
but
is not one of the
we
communities.
remember that, but it would be, if we go all the way to Hamilton to ride instead of being in our own town.
Yeah, yeah.
But the, but
You're
you,
gonna
but you
ride to
would if you
Hamilton.
were, if you were trying to include, no, it's never easy to mobilize people.
No,
For
no,
this
no.
meeting, there's a few people spending all the time.
Right.
But if you were trying to do that, then you would, Essex County Trails would go where their volunteers, bring them. They went to West Newbury and they brought up there.
So you could say that there's a need for a trails
Yeah.
committee. Probably in town.
It's definitely one of our weaknesses in town is maintaining trails and keeping up volunteerism.
Mm-hmm.
There's a-
We get a lot
I
of subcommittees, we get volunteers, they go strong for a year and then they disappear. And again, we can only hit Peter Durkee and the highway department up so much for clearing trails and stuff. It's
Right.
really a people power issue.
But there are certain horse legs, for instance, I used to mountain bike to the Georgetown Raleigh State Forest, cross the horse bridge, go down and you'd follow this forge all the way to Hood's Pond in Topsfield. And there was a little piece of land that would go in swimming. Now that would be a perfect lake for a horse to do. There was only one road, 2 roads to cross and then hardly ever even used. If you could establish that as a walk, then you got at least say, okay, you got a 10-mile loop that someone could put their horse in and do that.
Yeah.
And also, so there is certain parcels that, you'd want to, right now, I know that ridge is not under any type of control. It goes through the swamp. And it's a classic, would be a classic trail for horses. There's no houses on the left, there's no houses on the right for miles, it's.
It sounds like we really need a map to visualize this and do any future planning.
Oh, definitely. Should always have a map under your planning efforts.
That's something
Um,
we're gonna have to add, I guess, to the
Um,
LTA hours.
So we have about 20 minutes
Yeah, I think
left,
it'd
so
be
we
part
maybe
of all
should
this.
move on
Really?
to,
Excellent.
move on to.
Does the, can I just ask?
Yeah, of course.
Sharon's here. Does the planning board, as a matter of policy, if you have a good plan like this, ask for easements? For open space? In other words, if somebody's got
Development
a,
comes in.
if somebody's got a development that's going on.
They have
No,
OSRD.
I'm pro-development, so don't, but I'm not I'm pro-open space, and by going to a developer saying, okay, you got your houses, but we wanna have the public be able to cross to the rear of it.
Bear in mind, Alan, a planning board cannot really exact something like that from an applicant. What sometimes does happen is, at the behest of the applicant, they offer those things as part of an open space component to a development. And very frequently under what's referred to now as open space residential design for residential development. One of those
You're
are-
much more attuned to that than I am. I'm not. But I thought over at the with Essex County Trails over in the Hamilton Wenham area, it was actually an official request when they did this thing. To allow.
Right, for instance, Stone Road was a perfect example. They wanted to give the land to Stone Road, but they didn't want to give public access to it. So the people in the planning board said, no, we're not taking that land. Is that correct? The Stone Road
well,
negotiation?
I believe what happened is that it is currently privately restricted. It has a conservation restriction on it that is privately held. And Steve can tell you more about
Okay,
that.
so that was done after that original plan?
They offered us open space, but there was no public access.
Right.
So we weren't comfortable accepting land that we couldn't access. You couldn't offer the public to use it, why accept it?
Right.
So it was, we just did a conservation restriction on that parcel.
but there are good reasons to find partnerships in other organizations, regional organizations that you could have in hand that may step in and take conservation restrictions and other
Right.
Just
type
to answer-
restrictions and hold them, because they're not always the best thing. It's not always the best thing for a town to accept many if they don't have the capacity to handle them and manage them.
Yeah.
But there are some organizations
Work
out
with
there that
Greenbelt.
you could create
Yeah.
partnerships with that might be willing to do that
Greenbelt
for you, and
holds
that's
several
a
of
good
those.
thing to have in mind and create those as you go forward.
Also bear in mind, we have CPC, and one of the things we've been doing is when we see good conservation parcels of land, aquifer protection lands, good active recreational lands with active recreational potential, we've just been buying it.
Agricultural land, congratulations.
Yeah.
Great, all right,
All
so
right.
shall we,
Should I move on to programs, activities?
Sure.
all right.
Let's start with identifying them.
Yeah, so who creates or offers recreational programming in the town of Georgetown? So we know.
Park and Rec.
Park and Rec, and we also have, it's called a teen activities director, who's a part-time position. He mainly dances right now. It's 2 or 3 functions a year, which one might be a fishing trip, one might be, just so you know the history of this, he was very involved, he got married. He was less involved, he got divorced, now he's very involved.
All about the time commitment.
Dance
But
is
so
true.
he's been great, because it's a very low paying part-time. I think he holds 5 dances a year, and he,
I have 2 questions for you, if you're gonna be breaking up in groups, and I assume that means you're almost wrapped up or something like that.
I think we're almost done.
Because I'm not staying.
Okay.
But I have 2 questions that are of interest to me. The first one is what was the old plan and what has actually been accomplished? Well, I know that's a big question, so, but generally, what was the old plan? What's been accomplished with the old plan? I mean, did the old plan call for whatever, riding trails? And have they ever gone in? Have they called for access to things? And has it ever happened? What's happened with the old plan? How do we live up to it? And think of the other second question in a minute. But, and what is happening with conservation land is another question. It seems to be these are innocent questions, they're not loaded, but they seems to be, you guys seem to collect land, you seem to collect land, but nobody can get to it. And it's always been my philosophy, and I have a lot of land out, even outside of here, if you can't access your land and you can't go through it, then it's leave it for the turtles,
I'll
that's it.
handle,
Okay, no, can I-
I'll field that first one if I can, the
Sure,
first
can-
part, and
can I
leave the
try
second
that?
one to somebody else, but I can tell you that the goals, remember at the beginning part of this meeting, we were talking about the action plan?
Mm-hmm.
The action plan actually laid out 5-year plans and all the steps that needed to be taken. Had goals, and then it showed each one of the steps that would be needed to be taken and by which department to achieve those goals. I can tell you that we've reached every one of them.
You have.
Yes, actually, we reached them probably in about year 4. And albeit they weren't that lofty, they weren't. We weren't aiming for the moon. They were very moderate goals, very modest goals. But I can say that we brought them in.
okay, you wanna go next?
The second part, the second question. I'll
Yeah,
ask you,
I just, there seems to be a conception in town that, that if we purchase conservation land, and if it doesn't have a physical use, that it doesn't have value. And so, the open space plan should contain a water resource section. And, part of the reason if we protect land to protect a resource, I mean, that has plenty of value. I mean, if you're looking at our water quality issues, that type of thing. So that's one thing I want to talk about. The other thing my wife wanted to mention is that we have needs for a town cemetery. I think by law we're required to have every town is supposed to have a cemetery maintained by them, and we're running out of space. So that's something else.
I got an idea on that, by the way,
Okay.
so I'm
Well, your comment about some perception that it's not being actively used for something that is still good, that thing there, that's not necessarily true, I agree with you. It doesn't have to be, it can be used for other but it doesn't mean bird watchers they shouldn't have to be ducking and dodging to try and get into the woods. It doesn't mean kids can't, it doesn't mean you can't have a parking spot up to that area. So, I mean, the degree of how much you want to access because you think it's important land, for future things, maybe you don't want a highway paved through the middle of it, but I can't imagine why a little scout troop with, with a bird book going through there is I'm being real facetious, is an impact whatsoever, and yet they shouldn't have to be doing it.
And
They-
we have.
Or the ladies' garden club who wants to go out and
Right.
do.
Last
bird.
5 years, the CPC has approved parking areas in Lufkin's Brook, which is Bailey Lane. When Driftwood Farm was put in, we asked that parking be established here. And actually, I argued with Steve, not argued with Steve, I said, Steve, if you're gonna buy this land, I'd like to have horses be able to drive down, the old lady, what's the woman that used to own the parcel
Little
at the end?
paddock at the end there on the right.
The woman.
Down
who-
at the end of Wells.
Well said.
What's her name? Vicky?
Vicky.
Vicky's old place. I wanted it.
I only remember her as a young woman.
Yeah, I know.
Pretty good too.
Yeah. But anyways,
That's-
but I wanted that to be a place. I said because people might want to put their horses, be able to make a round looping and have horses there if you're going to buy this land.
That's
So
part
we
of the
have,
plan.
so we have tried to establish.
Yeah, but,
The
yeah, but
money's
why would you
there.
put horses there? Because you have, and I may be wrong, but you're now doing the Rails to Trails program and telling horses can't go on it.
Well, can we just have a clarification on that? Because you're saying one thing, and
I've been
maybe
told
I'm
this so
wrong.
many times. Matter of
Maybe
fact,
I'm wrong,
Agnelli-
Alan. I don't know.
They
I
tried
don't know
to
this
tell
for
me.
certain, but
They tried to tell me.
my
I'll tell you how
understanding
angry
was
I'm
that
about.
they were able to.
I would support it to the point of giving money for the thing,
No.
and yet I've been told that
You might be right.
I've been told that the horses are not going to be allowed on their Pagnelli. And he sometimes can get carried away.
Alan, just quickly, I believe from my experience with it, it wasn't that they were going to be that not allowed on the trail in terms of the use, but I thought the conflict with equestrian use on that trail was more from National Grid and the power lines.
Maybe I've been
So-
using it for 30 years.
Right, no, I know.
I've been using it for 30 years
Okay.
now.
So
And
that,
now,
that's
and now,
Did
now
you
I
have
won't
to
be able
duck under the wires, or?
So is this the rail
No.
trail or
We have
is
a
this
million
the
ways.
greenway?
Rail
And
trail.
is the rail trail anticipated to be a paved path?
it's
or an-
anticipated to be a
So your answer,
Gravel
Larry, is yes.
path.
They're
gravel
saying they're expecting
for
more.
a certain amount of time, with the hope that sometime in the
fine.
future, it could become paved in
Some
certain
kind
locations.
of hard surface, I mean, whether it's rock dust or something.
It's gonna be stone dust in the beginning.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So,
But as a supporter, I could see myself taking legal action to stop that. And I want that trail, because I think you're excluding a segment of the population. Why would you do that?
and I thought the
Would they- could
exclusion
be a-
was coming more from the people that own it underlying in fee, which is National Grid, and I didn't think exclusion was coming from.
Well, I
the
remember
rail
reading the
trail.
license, and I don't see anything that prohibits horses.
I think I heard that well, my take is that I heard the National Grid was the person against horses. But I'm in favor, like I said, I've always been in favor of certain, for instance, if you're in Driftwood Farm, you have to cross the horse trail to get into the wildlife refuge. There should be right of ways that allows you to go, at least go through or use a section. If you have to go down 100 yards and take a right to get to a rails trail, those sections should be established for those purposes. I'm not
Again-
sure, but I do think National Grid may have said that they had issues with horseback riding because of the height, and I agree. I don't believe those power lines are pretty damn high. There's no issue with someone getting zapped from a power line in those areas.
Well, I've read the license agreement, and I do not remember any prohibition to horses.
I hope so.
I'll send it to you. Give me your email address.
I'll forward. If you
Forward.
want, I can forward
Forward.
yours to him.
Yes, if you would.
I'll forward to you, and you can go to him. I have it at work. I have his email, my work email.
Excellent.
Good.
So I guess too, Sue, from 30,000 foot, there isn't a singular place in town hall, a department, that horse people, bicycle riders, joggers, and all the different people seeking active and passive recreation facilities can contact to say, am I allowed to go horseback riding over here? Am I allowed to go mountain biking over in the conservation land? So there isn't a singular clearinghouse, and it's been handled, as I understand it. Well, such and such, he manages
No, it's
the
a total
GA.
mixed match.
and so it's all about, it's a community network.
And it would be nice to have a place that, where you wouldn't actually have to go in and seek that information in the kind of, can I do
Physical.
this? But here's proactive information about the recreation
I wanna,
opportunity.
Sort of like an open space and recreation
I have
plan
one
or
other point
something.
before we give
Or
you
an
stop too.
office
Okay, yeah.
for-
Now,
Take yours.
the Conservation Commission does have a conservation land policy regulation, and it was in the open space plan, and it says horse riding is allowed in designated places. So
How many designated places are there?
it just says, the Conservation Commission has to designate where they go.
How many are there, Steve?
Not what I'm aware of.
Oh,
So maybe we should
So
get a
that needs-
resource in the future to make those designated.
But we
areas.
do have the policy in place. It's saying there's no
Well, it'd
policy.
be better if you said if they're excluded with designated. I would like that better.
And I don't know if it falls under the category of programming, but certainly
It's-
a signage of all the facilities would be helpful. So if people were,
We're losing money in town because people aren't coming here. There's no bed and breakfasts. There's no place for someone with horses to come and ride, and yet we have all this land that could be used. And it's just a thing that the town could in the long term. I'm not talking today or tomorrow, but people come to town, go out to dinner, have horses.
Yeah.
Buy stuff, have a tax shops. There's things that come around with people who have horses.
Right.
Well, even
Yeah.
people who live here don't know what is available. or
well,
how
there's
to-
there's
how
a
to get
huge
to
lack of knowledge about
American
the
Legion Park.
conservation areas in town.
My last future
You
thing
wrote-
is I
wrote
want to bring up.
signage there, and I can tell you that one of the things that we really do need for the conservation area, for the passive conservation areas, is signage. Um,
Are there any other programmatic, are there any other needs that you can think of for
Well,
programs?
one of the things on there, is one of the groups is also like the Council on Aging actually
Yeah.
provides some programming
Oh,
for
thank you.
recreation.
The one thing too, I also don't want to get left off this list,
Calling
that I
field
brought up at
oil?
the beginning is, when we were kids, we were 13, 14, we'd go down to Raleigh Landing and we'd go fishing at night, or we'd go lobstering. You could go in June when it's nights are late and go fishing with the blues would come in chasing the alewives. We couldn't clam back then because the clams were bad, but now the clamming beds are all being reestablished. It's our only access to the ocean. To lose that is, and truthfully, I can pay $10 to go, but if you're a kid, we used to use that landing a lot. And a lot of the kids in the area did too.
Is that the state landing?
No, it's a town, Raleigh,
So
it's
this-
called right now the Raleigh Landing, but it's really, up until then, was a Raleigh Georgetown Landing.
Oh, that's the one that you were talking about.
Right, so it's something that we should, you can go out to
Yeah.
Cranes Beach, you got a 10 horsepower motor. A lot of kids in this area would spend a lot of time going out fishing at night.
Yeah.
It should be something we should reestablish for this
Yeah.
town. And we actually spent $5,000 to have a lawyer look at our legal rights. And I think we should think about doing something about it.
Yeah. Cranes also allows horses, don't they? Does Cranes allow horses
I'm
in
not
some parts of
sure.
their?
I'm not sure.
But remember, whenever you got horses, you got ticks and other
But
things.
it might be seasonal as
Right.
well, off-season.
So-
Any other service providers? I know,
We've got Georgetown
Don't
Athletic
forget the-
Associates, Parks and Rec, and Council on Aging.
yeah, are there any others?
well, there's the rail trail committee.
Rails Trail.
Rail
Committee.
Trail,
Yeah.
Rail Trail.
What about the band?
And
group
they're actually, their name gets swapped around a lot. They're actually called the Recreational Path Committee.
Open space committees.
Recreational-
Path
Oh,
Committee.
okay.
Jimmy, may I ask you, what is the organization that does
identify
the concerts in the park?
for
Yeah, I was just asking.
interests in the
Concerts in the park.
plan.
I
And
think
I
it's the
have your
Cultural
name
Council
down
Committee.
as
Is that the
that,
Cultural
and
Council?
the Twiston Wood
Cultural
Farm
Council?
to
Is that
mention,
their
but
actual?
who else?
It may
know
be,
Madigan-
I
Sue
equestrian
Madigan is
community.
the-
believe that may be Georgetown Cultural
Board of
Council.
Health has a list of all.
All right.
There's the people that run Camp Leslie and Camp Dennison.
Conservation subgroup, what's that called?
Yeah.
Bob, the five Bobs?
Camp Dennison, so big trails.
They're the ones that handle all the programming in
Okay, for
specific
horse
parks.
owners.
Camp Dennison and Camp Leslie?
Yeah.
Camp
Camp Leslie is a
Leslie's a private
4-H and Camp
organization.
Dennison is
Yeah.
a.
And those are programmed through the summer
What was Camp
by,
Dennison?
by town?
Private. Camp
By
Leslie's
town
private.
committees?
Leslie's
Leslie is private?
What's that, Brian?
Well, I heard Camp Leslie is 4-H.
Yeah,
Camp
Camp
Dennison
Dennison's
is
just
Private organization.
private.
Conservation.
As-
conservation private
Right.
organization.
It
Town
is, but it's
open.
also, I mean, it certainly has an interest
Has the capacity.
in the town open space plan.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, they do workshop in the woods at Camp Dennison.
At Camp
I
Den-
think they see a
workshop in the woods,
few,
yeah.
few hundred kids go down
I'm
there
talking
every
about
summer.
about Camp Leslie, though.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They deserve as big a mention as
Yeah.
the golf course does, which we may have forgotten.
We have.
Exactly.
Private organization.
Right.
But
Well,
I'd put them in the
Noonan's-
private organization category of open
Noonan's,
space.
Noonan's is another one.
Stakeholders.
I mean, there's a number of.
Stakeholders, absolutely.
Noonan's Florist is another potentially, it's, Bob's Farm Stand is probably one too.
Well, yep.
I mean,
Some of
just-
our chapter 61.
Offer classes, that type of thing.
Noonan's will do.
They do a lot of, they do a lot of school groups to the farm.
School groups,
There was one
farm,
last
yeah.
Friday.
Yeah, Bob's Farm Stand,
80,
they have
100 kids.
school groups that
Oh,
go there,
nice.
so it should be,
Yeah.
it's a learning center, I guess.
Nice,
Educational outreach.
Right,
yeah.
there you go.
Those are the hook words, I guess.
That's the word.
Does the school department have like a nature center or anything like that?
Camp Dennison.
Dennis.
does.
Oh, that's part of this. Okay.
How about historic? Are you gonna include historic in your,
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
is, Brocklebank Museum?
What is it called?
Brocklebank?
Breckle?
Brockle?
Brockle.
Brocklebank.
BANCRE.
BROCK.
B-R-O-C-K.
Bank.
Oh, Brockle Bank.
All one word.
One word.
Oh.
All one, Brocklebank. Samuel Brocklebank, historic.
I don't know why you thought I should know how to spell that.
Samuel Brocklebank.
And that's historical, you said.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's the museum. And there were a number of,
You have an active historical commission or society?
yes, absolutely.
Both.
Both. One is private, one is the public.
Right, historical commission.
And there's a town burial ground.
Mhm. Union Cemetery.
Which is almost full.
Municipal cemetery.
It
Is
is
that
full.
right? It is full.
Mhm.
Talking about
And there's the
needs
private
another
organization, the
cemetery?
private cemetery,
We're supposed
Harmony.
to, my wife's the president of the Historical Society.
Union
He
Cemetery
says
is the public, is
Towns are
is
required to
town-owned.
have a public cemetery.
It was assumed by
Harmony
the
is
town.
private.
Years-
Yeah.
a
And up
couple of
until a
years
few
ago.
years ago,
And
Union
Harmony Cemetery.
was private, but that's all built out.
Yeah.
Privately owned.
And this needs, that we only have another 30 years in Harmony Cemetery. So we're gonna need land for a cemetery.
Is there any other thoughts
Birch
that
Park.
anyone would want to share?
Harry Murch Park was something we missed.
Oh, yeah, you forgot that, right in
Yeah,
the middle of.
we missed Harry Murch Park.
Is that active,
Um,
passive?
you guys call
Park.
it, I'm not
It's
even gonna
typical
make
to
that.
the,
It's
typical of,
passive.
you know,
It's a
parks programs in
postage stamp
downtown.
park.
Common, a common.
Pass-
It's a
yeah.
common.
Yeah, it's common, I would call it that, yeah,
Common.
but a good way to put it.
And we have a common out
Common
by
program,
Byfield.
wasn't it?
Byfield has a
Harry
common
We
too.
have
I
a
Pat-
common, yeah, we have two
Harry?
commons.
Harry Murch.
Harry
M-U-R-C-H.
don't know what they call it. What do they call that?
What?
Byfield Parish.
Byfield Parish Common.
Oh, the veterans,
Right.
the
That's right.
Veterans Park.
And actually.
Veterans Park.
When Jack Moultrie hacked the one up by Brocklebank, there's still a little piece of land there that's
Supposed to be,
considered a common. I forget what that, there's still a little.
That was the old South Church used to be.
South Church Common, there's still a tiny piece. Basically, it's not much of a park, it's about the size of probably this area here, but they still put a monument there.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do with the information that we gathered, this is kind of helps us understand the issues and the land that's in your town. And we've already, we've started an inventory, and next we're doing an assessment. What do you need? We've got an inventory, but we need to know what is it that you need and what you want as a community. So we're taking this information along with the information that we'll get from various interviews and stakeholders, and you may very well be on that list of people that we will be calling. We'll be doing a townwide survey. Some of the issues that are come up are perfect for testing in a survey, because we've heard from some people in this community and would like to, get a wider range of people to provide input. So we'll do the survey and also, test some of these thoughts and ideas. And then we'll try to pull this all together in a plan, and then come back to you with that plan and review it and help us move it along. So in the end, you do have, again, a series of steps that you can take that think about policies, regulations, community actions, town actions that you can take to move forward, advance your goals for open space and recreation. So thank you so much for coming.
So, quick question.
Yeah.
You had mentioned you were putting together an inventory. Would it be helpful if, as soon as the inventory, we have a spreadsheet there from the old one.
That's what we started with.
Oh, okay, so you're
Yeah.
I'll be
Yes.
forwarding that
Putting it
on.
Basically, yeah,
Yeah.
the status of that is, and I worked with that inventory and sort of organized it the way the state likes to see it.
Mhm.
And we've identified sort of gaps of knowledge where we need a little more information, so.
Excellent.
We're at that point right now.
Excellent. Adding the recent in that, since that began.
Yeah, and a lot of the information that we've thought about and gathered for your next plan came directly from your previous plan. Your natural resources haven't changed dramatically, other than they're getting used up. But we use your plan that you had, and then move forward from there. So, but the crux of the piece that we're trying to put together is really understand what your community needs are. So that's why we're reaching out into your community through these forums, through the surveys, through interviews, to find out, what is it that you really want to do moving forward. So that's what we'll be focusing on next, and you'll be hearing from us.
Can I ask about the historic component? That has changed greatly because a survey that was done, probably about 100 historic properties were surveyed. And so where the old historic and cultural interests section maybe it was this long, it's gotten much longer, and you can get that information from the Historical Commission. I don't know
Yes.
if they've been,
Yeah.
if you've had the opportunity to be in touch with the Historical Commission.
Not yet, but we do have a pretty substantial list at the moment, so we'll
I think we have that list. We have that list, and I know
previous plan has proposed historical sites as well.
I can get you an
yeah,
update to all
you're
that.
looking for the update to that. Yeah,
Yeah.
got bigger, got a lot bigger.
Excellent.
And Steve and I have gotten together a draft stakeholder for you to be contacting, and the Open Space Committee is meeting next Monday,
Yes.
I believe, and they're gonna get more contacts, so you should be getting that next step list of contacts from us
Okay.
within a week.
Great.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing your ideas and thoughts and your knowledge. Any final questions or
I'd
comments?
like you to take 10 seconds when you leave here, so you'll have a better understanding of your client's property. When you drive downtown, you take a left. You just go a very short distance.
On 97?
No.
You head towards Haverhill, go right downtown, the mobile station, go left.
On 97? Yeah.
And there's a Rich Deal store there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Take a right and go down 1,000 feet, 500 feet, and there's a old lumber yard. You'll see our old buildings and the gas tanks and
There's a
stuff like
sign there
that.
now that says
And there's a
park.
sign that says park. Drive in there. You don't even have to get out. Drive in, drive through the park, and drive out. And that'll give you a much better concept of the park. What are we calling that?
American
That's
Legion.
Veterans Park.
Oh,
American Legion Park.
American
Take you-
Legion
It'll
Park.
take you all of 4 minutes.
Yeah. It's not that big.
I don't know what your whole range, but the one thing people I've noticed, people have said to me too, is there's no bed and breakfast, there's no place someone coming in for night to see their mother or their
Yeah.
grandmother to stay for one night. They have to come here and they have to go to Newburyport, or they go to Raleigh, the place in Raleigh. And that's fine too, but I'm just saying, I don't know if your overall scheme of things, if you have that part of a lookout,
It doesn't, but do you have a master plan? A community
you guys
master
have one
plan?
place if
He'll
someone's
do a
going
good
to.
job on this,
Yeah.
and this will
Yeah.
be what?
That's
5
usually-
of the 8 components?
That's usually
No,
very
that's fine, it's just that, it's
directly
been brought up to
your-
me 3 times, they go to a funeral, they gotta leave town, they wanna go down the street to have a drink, but now they gotta drive, so they really can't do that. It'd be nice to have one place that people could stay.
Is it true the key word is that you were looking for is linkage
Linkage.
between all of the things?
Yeah.
Connectivity.
Yeah, 'cause like you said,
Connectivity.
I want connectivity.
Connectivity.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you everyone for coming in. I really appreciate it.
What we're doing here this week, Green Belt is right here.
What's the Hampshire lane? What's the Hampshire lane?
What do you